6 lives were lost yesterday on the N3 and over 70 people are currently in hospital. Among them, holidaymakers heading home from Durban after the Easter weekend. And while the exact cause of the multiple accidents and the multicar pileup is still being investigated, driver error is firmly in the spotlight. Layton Beard, who speaks for the Automobile Association, joins us now. You know, Layton, I feel like a stuck record sometimes because we see these horrific accidents. We're all absolutely devastated. We just don't seem to be getting it right. And I'm not sure where the problem is, because on an Easter weekend, there are loads of police on the road. Of course, they can't police every single kilometre, but the traffic authorities are out in full force. Yet, we still see horrific accidents like this one.
Oh, we do. And I mean, I think it's to be expected, quite honestly, Sally. I think when you look at, the fact that for 50 weeks of the year, there's very low police visibility. Traffic law enforcement is on the roads looking for expired vehicle license discs. And then for 2 weeks of the year during Easter and over the end of the year festive period, there's this intensification of traffic law enforcement. You're certainly not going to change people's driving behavior in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, when for the rest of the year, it's quite honestly a free-for-all on South African roads. And what is required is a sustained traffic law enforcement effort throughout the year to ensure that when we get to these very busy times of the year, people are conscious of the fact that they've got to drive safely. They're conscious of the fact that there's going to be consequences to bad driving behavior, and that there are, in fact, consequences in the form of punitive fines or whatever the courts decide. But you know, when we get to these intensive traffic law enforcement campaigns at these very specific times of the year, we're surprised when we see these high numbers of fatalities, when in fact it's a lead up and a build up over the course of the rest of the year. So, you know, quite frankly, nothing is going to change unless we get that situation sorted out.
So consistent policing, traffic authorities visible all the time. So drivers who want to break the rules go, hang on, there might be a traffic person just around the corner. OK, so that's one thing. But you know what I don't understand is that we still see people overtaking on blind risers, overtaking in the face of oncoming traffic, neglecting following distance. Even without police to monitor driver behaviour, these are common sense, life-saving practices. What is it about South Africans that we seem to be prepared to dice with death?
Well, I will bring you back to that, Sally. You know, the fact of the matter is there are no consequences for bad driving behavior. So you commit a small offence by, for instance, you know, changing lanes on a solid white line in rush hour traffic in the morning, and you then take your cell phone out and you have a conversation. You then begin to text on your cell phone. You then begin to speed. You think it's okay to drive without your seatbelt on, or to have your passengers in the vehicle without their seatbelts on. And so there's this accumulation of bad driving behavior. And then when you hit the open road, you've kind of got this feeling of impunity. Nothing is going to happen to me. There are no consequences, so I can do whatever I want. I can obviously speed. I can text and drive. I can overtake on solid white lines, on a rise, on a bend. I don't know what's on the other side, but you know what? Nobody's going to stop me. And that's where it begins and ends. There is no awareness campaign that runs, apart from these very intensive campaigns during these festive periods, throughout the rest of the year. There's no education in schools. We're not teaching young children from a young age about road markings and road signs and graduating them to understand road safety better. So there's a whole ecosystem of road safety that is being neglected in South Africa. And then we get to a situation where we have these very busy traffic volumes at festive periods. And this is the consequence of that. You know, we can't expect this behavior to change if we don't do anything throughout the year to ensure that that behavior changes.
I want us to take a closer look at incidents of drunk driving. We know we still have a problem on our roads, and you know, both you and I have got young people, young children who are now driving. Generally, what I see is the youngsters of today are much more aware that you simply do not drive drunk, compared perhaps to our generation. Would you agree with my assessment? And would you know what has changed if you believe I'm right?
I think there is a measure of truth in that. I mean, obviously, I haven't done a scientific study on that. And, in South Africa, I don't know what those figures tell us. But, when we look at drunk driving, the Traffic Law Enforcement Review Committee released a report in 2019, and they found that of the cases of the people that were pulled over for drunk driving, only between 8 and 10% of them actually were punished for that drunk driving. So therein lies a story on its own. And again, I don't want to sound like a broken record myself, but when you have a situation where people go and drink and then drive, there is no consequence to that because there's no traffic law enforcement that prevents them from doing that. Yes, there may be times when there are roadblocks and there may be intensive campaigns that prevent that, but very often people drink and drive and get away with it, and that's the problem. And you've got to actually get to a situation where people understand that if they drink and drive, they are not only going to get pulled over by the police, they are going to spend time in jail, and they are going to get to a court which is going to prioritize that as a serious offense and is going to ensure that they are punished accordingly. And it takes laboratories to process blood samples quickly, not the 12 to 18 months that we currently see, and therein lies another problem. So it's all about driver behavior. How do we change driver behavior, Sam? How do we ensure people don't commit road offenses and drive properly and obey the rules of the road? And if it means that we have to intensify our traffic law enforcement, then we have to do that. We need double the amount of traffic law enforcers on South African roads than what we currently have. And this is not the AA saying this. This is a government-appointed task team that made that recommendation way back in 2019. Since then, we've lost close on, I think, 45,000 lives on our roads, and nothing is being done to change that. So along with driver behavior change, we need political will to ensure that those measures that we speak of are actually implemented and people understand that there are consequences to their behaviors.
Such an important message. Thank you so much, Layton Beard of the Automobile Association.